I just put this on here just to highlight, we've really tried to be creative. We've put down the millings that have been really popular through town. We had a lot of dirt roads that people don't realize are dirt roads, that we've just done reconstituted millings on these things. When we do have the chips still in town, we're going to do an experimental patch over some of this reconstituted milling area and see how well that holds up. We've done a traditional chip over an area with a slurry over the top of that, caped it, and it's actually held up pretty well. I mean, they're not paved streets, but they're backdoor paved streets, I guess. We use what's called an OCI, which is Overall Condition Index, to rate our streets. And we'll be putting in the budget for this year a renewal and update of this condition rating. And so what this does is it goes through and on a 1 to 100 scale, it rates the roads, and it says, okay, how are these roads rated? And you can think of it like an A, B, C, D, F. I mean, that's basically how it lines up. And what we can do with this program, we have a program called Cartograph, and we plug in the numbers and we say, okay, what are our scenarios? And so if as a community we decide that we want all our roads to be in an 80 OCI, we say, we want to have an average of B-level roads throughout the community. It'll shoot out numbers for us. So as you can see right here, that's what this slide does. Is it goes with the presumption that we want to have an 80 OCI. So we start with that 80 OCI. Without doing anything, the unimproved network drops down to a 75. But it would take about a $2.5 million investment, or excuse me, $2.3 million investment that year to get back up to an 80. And then you can see that it's a $1.2 million investment after that, $800,000 after that. And so it shows you what we need to have if we set those thresholds. And the thing that I think is more important to look at is this number right here. What this chart shows is what happens when we're not able to properly invest in the upkeep of our street infrastructure. So if we start, this assumes $400,000 annually. That's what this assumes, is that in our surface treatment program, we have $400,000 annually to spend. We start with an 80, we go down to a 75, we put our $400,000 in, we jump back up a little bit. But the next year, the important thing to see is that even though we jumped up to a 76 with our treatments that year, by the next year, we've dropped down to a 74. So about every year we lose 2 points on our overall condition index. And so what that means is every year that we'd only funded at $400,000, we're going to go from a 78 to a 76 to a 74, and over time it's going to get to the point where we have a failed roadway system. And it's just, it's inevitable math that that's going to happen that way.
So, if I may?
Go ahead.
So, Tyler, to exaggerate it, you're saying that if we don't put enough money into these roads, we're looking forward in a generation or two, a gravel street Moscow.
Yeah, it could get to the point where our option is to rent a grinding machine and grind up the little bits of asphalt we've got left and go gravel.
And that is the story across America.
Yeah, this is not unique. This is not unique to Moscow. Certainly not. This is a concern that as you talk to any municipality throughout the country, this is something that everybody is grappling with, is how to deal with this. And this chart just kind of shows that. I mean, I think all of you that have been through budget processes recently have seen how hard our city administration and our elected officials have tried to fund our roadway system. Putting increasingly more money in the past several years into the program. Our average has been about $250,000 since 2002, and you saw what happens with $400,000 annually. And so that's really the results. Our commitment is really that we're going to spend every dime that we can get effectively, and we do understand the difficulties and the fiscal difficulties of it, but it is something we all need to be aware of, and we need to be thinking about how we come to a more sustainable long-term solution with this. So with that, we did receive responsive bidders for both slurry seal and asphalt rubber. We were encouraged that the number of bidders that we had, especially for the slurry seal, when we put out the first one 5 years ago, there were only 2 bidders, and we were the only first ones in the area to do that. What we're proposing is to accept the AR chip seal bid. We had an engineer's estimate of $8.50 a square yard. It came in at $8.60 a square yard. We were really pleased with that, especially considering last year's bid that we put out was 25% higher than that. And so they really sharpened their pencil. We feel like we're getting a really good deal because they want to have an example project in our area. And so we think it's a good chance to try and save some of these very critical roads like D that we have this brief window that we can do something with. And so that's our proposal, is to award to Intermountain Slurry Seal in the amount of $190,920, the asphalt rubber bid for this year. And so with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Walter?
Tyler, the graph that you have up right now, those are budgeted amounts.
Yes, sir.
In 2015 or 16, you spent hardly anything of the budget.
In the 16
Forget-
budget.
I can't read the dates that well, and I don't remember exactly what year it was, but the audited report we just looked at showed a real drop in actual street maintenance.
And this chart actually reflects that, Walter. What I've done is I've taken only the new monies are showed in each year on this chart. So the same thing happened in 2006. I actually corrected this chart from the last time you saw it, because what we had was it was an accumulated funding in 2006, and so there wasn't an expenditure the previous year because they were accumulating for the 6th Street project in the subsequent year. And so what is shown on this chart is the new monies.
But not actuals.
Expenditures or?
Actual expenditures.
Not actual expenditures. This is the budgeted new monies in the pavement management fund for each year.
Jim?
Yeah, Jim?
Tyler, can you go back to the chart you had where that one right there?
Okay.
So, in year one, assuming we're putting 400 in at this per year and then the deterioration, what if you started in year one and put 5 million in?
Well, what had happened, Jim, if we put 5 million in, we could raise the OCI significantly. But the funding level, what we would then plug in, it would kick out a number that would be that equilibrium funding level that we still have to be putting in to maintain that level, if that makes sense. And so we could jump up to 90 OCI, but then if we're still only putting in $400,000 a year, over time, that amount will come down. Because if you think it in really basic terms, we should be doing a treatment to each road about every 7 years. Every road should see us doing something about every 7 years. So regardless of the condition that we start with, if we're not doing that, over time it's going to continue to degrade. So there's a balance point where we can say, okay, we can get up to this X number, whatever the goal is, with X amount of dollars, and then there's this equilibrium funding where we say, okay, once there, we need to be funding this at, the estimates right now that we've got show about $800,000 to $900,000 in surface treatments annually would be a good number to maintain a system at a level.
What I'm trying to get at is how much do we have to put in up front so that the $400,000 will maintain it?
Tyler,
It'll never maintain
can you go
it.
back to your
Yeah, because
your
it'll
curves?
shrink down every year. You'll have to go.
And maybe I can help you with that one just a little bit. Tyler's right in what he's saying about, you jump up, but you continue to deteriorate. One of the things that's important on this graph, when you look at the green lines, they represent, asphalt in its initial new condition, and it tends to not deteriorate too rapidly those first number of years, so it's a fairly flat curve, and then over time, it just starts dropping off. So that's why you see that on that pavement serviceability, that rapid drop towards the end. So if you can catch it when it's in the better condition, in that flatter section, you don't have to do as much to keep the number up. And so if you can elevate the whole system and then apply treatments, whether it's chip seals or slurries or something like that that's not terribly expensive while it's still in good condition, then you keep bumping it up like you see with that slurry seal maintenance, and you're back up into that high level, fairly flat on the curve. So that tends to lengthen the amount of time that you have to have between treatments. Once you get down on that curve, you jump up, but you're still declining.
Right.
And
What I'm trying to come up with is the equilibrium
What is the number? Yeah.
Let's say if you started at 100, if you could get all the streets were all brand new,
What would it take
how
to
much
stay there?
does it take to maintain them at 100?
Yeah, and I don't know that we've run that
Yeah,
level
that-
of
that's-
number yet.
Lower it down to 80 and find out what the
And we
equilibrium
can
is on that.
we can certainly run that scenario. I think the point is, and this is exactly what Les was illustrating right there, is this is how much it, and you know, our proposed project really illustrates that right now. We have an option for new pavement, which is a slurry seal, at $1.56 a square yard, but we're needing to chase some of these more deteriorated pavements at $8.60 a square yard. If it was something we needed to do an overlay on, now we're talking $15 to $17 a square yard with the ramps, and then if you've got to rebuild it, you're easily $50+ a square yard, and so the costs are
Well,
significantly higher on the
there's
bottom
one
end.
thing. There's one thing for certain that I know: we will never have our streets ever at 100% because you couldn't do it in a year. There's no way in God's green earth you could do the damn thing.
No, you know,
Probably in 3 years, really. Thinking about it, so you're going to have deterioration while you're trying to get to that level. You'll never get there.
and that's exactly it, and that's why
You wouldn't have enough workers.
we're always going to have roads that fall into every category. That's just going to happen. That's a reality. But if we can spend our money in a wise way,
Yeah.
and we can spend it on these maintenance projects, we can get to the point where 80 OCI is a pretty common goal for communities around the country, to try and maintain an 80 OCI. So people aren't shooting for 100. They're not shooting for 95 typically. An 80 OCI, where you say, no, we want good traversable streets, that's a fairly common goal that communities have placed.
Okay, so we kind of got off the beaten path a little bit in our discussion. You talked about accepting this Schedule B, which was the Intermountain Slurry Seal for the award of the contract of $190,920. It was Schedule B. That's the one you were talking about?
That's right.
And that's what you're looking for, that approval?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, okay. John?
I'd make a motion then, I guess, that we accept the low bid Schedule B from Intermountain Slurry Seal, award the contract in the amount of $190,920, and authorize staff approval of construction change orders in the amount not to exceed 10% of the contract amount, which would be $19,092.
Second.
Okay, John made a motion, Jim Boland made a second to accept the low bid Schedule B from Intermountain Slurry Seal, awarding the contract $190,920, and authorize the staff approval of construction change orders in the amount not to exceed 10% of the contract amount of $19,092. Walter, I'll start with you.
Aye.
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 You got it.
Thank you.
Tyler, now, before you leave, there's something I want to mention. I appreciate, as a mayor of this town, because this has been a major challenge area for him. We're going to talk about it every single year, and I think you're doing a hell of a job on it with the staff, with what we got to work with. And every one of us in this room in TBN land knows that you only got a finite amount of money to work with, and I think our guys do a wonderful job on it. So, that being said, thanks for this excellent report.
I appreciate you mentioning
And
that,
that's,
Mayor.
well, it's a big deal to me, and it's a big deal to the
Well,
councilors up
without
here.
Steve and his staff, we've got a really professional, good
Yep.
staff of guys that we really couldn't do it without them.
And we appreciate all the work that they do, and I would very much entertain when this new stuff comes along, the rubber coating, that you do a field trip, so councilors and myself can go take a look at, because our community will be very involved, is wanting to know what we're doing, and it's exciting, because you'll see some improvement in our roads.
We'll be certain to schedule that.
Okay. Thank you.